They live in Brazil, yet their ancestors came from Germany, and they dream of a life there. Torn between two worlds, where do they really feel a sense of Heimat, or home? The place where they feel they truly belong. That's something José Behling thinks about a lot.
If Heimat or home is a place, then for me it would be Pomerode. If it has something to do with people, then it would be my family. If the idea of Heimat is about music, then I would say for me Heimat is rock and roll, but folk music too.
Heimat ist für mich Rock and Roll, aber auch Volksmusik.
José and his wife Rosa are both from Pomerode, the most German city in Brazil. José is 28 years old. He's a PhD student in mathematics. His studies leave him little time for his other passion, making music with his hard rock band, New Rose. His heroes are the Scorpions and Guns N' Roses. The band's rehearsals last up to 4 hours. José's neighborhood has got used to their heavy guitar riffs and German lyrics. They had a local breakthrough with their song Rock and Roll Mops. Everything started in Pomerode, they sing.
At first, people found it odd. They called it the devil's music.
Yes, the devil's music. But then we wrote Rock and Roll Mops. People heard it and thought it was really good.
But festivals with German folk music and traditional dances are more to the average Pomerode's taste. The Festa Pomerana in January is the biggest and most popular festival in the town. It brings together young and old, musicians and dancers. It's a typical German folk festival along the lines of Munich's Oktoberfest.
A liter's called a Maß. It's served in a Stein.
A Maß?
Yes, a measure, as in he's good at taking measures.
If you drink 2 of those, you're done in.
Oh, they drink more there. And the women, they carry 5 big steins.
5 of them.
5 here, 5 here.
10 drinks in one go.
Yes, they're big women, you know.
Well-kept lawns and gardens, bicycle paths and wide sidewalks are characteristic of Pomerode. Its 27,000 residents live in 16 districts. German cars are very popular.
Mir gefällt diese Abenteuer.
José's old VW Beetle can still manage the steep climb into the rainforest. Pomerode is located on the banks of the Rio do Testo in the Brazilian state of Santa Catarina. The Behling family owns a large plot of land in this valley.
My grandfather had a large plot of land and he's already shared it out. My mum and my uncle each got a piece. My brother and I will also get a piece, and maybe even our children too.
Ich und mein Bruder werden auch noch ein Stück davon bekommen. Und vielleicht sogar unsere Kinder.
We don't know yet, but as you can see, there's still plenty left.
Noch viel Platz, ja.
José's father works at a German pump factory and takes care of the huge garden in his spare time. It's very fertile soil. 11 different varieties of bananas alone grow here. And his eucalyptus trees bring in a good profit for very little effort.
This is the stump of a eucalyptus tree I planted 26 years ago, right after I moved here. It stood there for 16 years and produced a whole truck full of wood.
Each tree is worth 200 euros. Hans has planted 600 of them to provide his son some financial security in the future. But the math student is still undecided as to where his future lies. Pomerode has many advantages, but he and his wife can also imagine living in Germany. Since childhood, German folk songs and pictures of Germany have been part of their lives in Brazil. José's grandfather also has his favorite memories.
This harmonica's from Germany. What's it called? Our darling.
Their German ancestors brought a lot with them to Brazil. Most of them came from Pomerania. 150 years ago, their ship landed in southern Brazil. The journey was arduous and took 2 months, but poverty and hunger had driven them from their homeland. Land was promised to them in the New World, but it had to be laboriously cleared from the jungle before it could be farmed and houses could be built. Today there are still nearly 250 half-timbered houses and farms dating from the colonial period. Many Pomeranian descendants keep cattle and farm just as the first settlers did.
Once the people built their half-timbered houses, you could say that they felt more at home here in Brazil, Pomerode, or Santa Catarina. They replicated many things from their old homeland for life here.
The immigrants even imported 9-pin bowling from Germany. The sport encouraged a sense of community, and today there are many bowling clubs which regularly compete in this precision sport. And what about German food? Well, that's a must. Braised duck or pork knuckle on sauerkraut. The Wunderwald restaurant dishes them all up in suitably hearty style. Exhibits in the restaurant recall the first settlers in 1861. Along with their culture, they also brought their Protestant faith to Brazil. But they had to wait 30 years before they could build a church with a tower.
Catholicism was the official religion. But after 1889, Lutheran churches were also allowed to have a tower. But not before.
Today there are 13 Lutheran churches for the 18,000 members of the congregation in Pomerode. Although the town's official language is Portuguese, church services are also held in German. 70% of the inhabitants still speak German, just as their ancestors did. Pastor Rolf Röder holds half the church services in the center of Pomerode in German.
So sehen unsere Augen auf den Herrn, unserem Gott, bis uns gnädig werde. Sei uns gnädig, Herr, sei uns gnädig.
Things are changing, but it wasn't so long ago that Portuguese was still the second language for many.
I had a hard time at school. When I had to read aloud in Portuguese, the others used to laugh at my German accent. I was often asked if I came from Germany. I'd say, no, I'm Brazilian. But then they'd ask why I speak such good German.
When I studied in Florianopolis, people also said, but you're a foreigner, right?
Exactly, but this is Pomerode. They still speak a lot of German here.
During World War II, however, their language also caused the Pomeranian expatriates problems as Brazil allied itself to the USA in the war against Germany.
Many people couldn't speak Portuguese well. All of a sudden, it was completely forbidden to speak German, and that caused difficulties. A number of them went to jail because of it. German books had to be hidden too.
Old German books often surface after being hidden in attics or buried in wells or gardens in Pomerode for decades. They're cleaned up and archived in the Pomeranian Museum. People want to do as much as they can to preserve the town's history. Now the old language problems are long forgotten. Most schools in Pomerode teach German. One is the Tutor Blumenau, a private school. Students here can earn a German language diploma. José Behling attended high school here, but he chose English as his foreign language.
I didn't learn German at Blumenau. I took English. You had to choose either English or German, and I chose English. Why take German, I thought? I already speak a bit of German. What do I need it for?
When José was young, German was still the language most families spoke at home. But the new generation is different. The children usually speak Portuguese with their parents. They learn German from Eliana Strauss, a teacher who has noticed this generational change among her students.
When you think of the students who attend this school now, I'd say things are quite a bit different than they were 15 years ago.
At
that time, the children still spoke German at home. And they came to the school to improve or polish it. Today, we also get students from other cities whose parents may have moved to Pomerode for professional reasons. Those students really are learning German as a foreign language.
Ich kaufe jetzt Brot. Viel kostet das Brot? 1 Euro. Ah, das ist aber billig, das nehme ich.
Learning German may also help them get a job in the future, since there are a number of German companies in the region. It would also make it easier to build a life in Germany, which is the dream of many people in Pomerode.
Their home is here, ours is here too, but our hearts still belong to Germany. And I would say it's the dream of many to go to Germany and see and experience it for themselves. In recent months, quite a few people have taken a trip to Germany to get to know the country firsthand. And many are delighted to have done it.
José's desire to return to the land of his ancestors also grew over time. One of his uncles lived in Bavaria for many years, and he had a lot of stories to share about life in the old country.
He showed us pictures, this uncle of mine, and we thought, oh, it's really beautiful in Germany. Sometimes you see half-timbered houses and say, look, we've got houses like that here too. Well, I was curious. I wanted to know what it was like in Germany.
In 2009, he got the chance to find out. José won a scholarship that would allow him to work on his doctorate for a year in Germany. After being accepted by the Technical University in Dresden, José and Rosa moved to Europe. He took a course to improve his German and looked forward to exploring the country. In spite of his preparations and expectations, the Brazilian with German roots was still in for a few surprises.
When I arrived in Germany, it was winter and very grey that day, and I saw all these little houses. And I thought, these are favelas. There are shanty towns in Germany too. There are poor people here too, living in such small houses. But then I was told that they were allotment gardens. I'd heard of them, of course, but hadn't seen them before. On that grey day, I thought, these are favelas like they have in Rio de Janeiro. But here in Germany, people mainly use these allotment gardens in the summer. They grow fruit and vegetables, or just go there to relax.
At the Technical University of Dresden, José carried out research into mathematical problems.
Man will zeigen, dass die Projektion auf Omega von x.
In mathematics, at some point, you find a solution that is always true.
Man darf nicht größer
That's what he likes about math, he says.
als das hier sein.
He sees his future career at a university, too.
Ich wollte schon immer
I've
unterrichten.
always wanted to teach. I already know that's what I want to do. And research too. Okay, I'm not so sure about that. I've published an article with my supervisor, but I don't know if that's my path or not. But I am sure that I want to work at a university.
An einer Universität arbeiten will.
What's still not clear is, in which country? Brazil or Germany? José has been asking himself that for much of his life. It's an issue that's not yet resolved. But at least his time in Dresden is giving him a chance to find out what life in Germany is really like.
Früher habe ich schon immer gesagt, dass eine
In the
Hälfte
past,
von
I
mir
always said one half of me is German and the other Brazilian.
Ja. Und heutzutage
I still
habe
think
ich
the same
noch die
today,
gleiche.
but I
Sie
think
sagen,
the
man,
whole has become bigger. The two halves are bigger now.
das Ganze
I've
wurde
grown a
größer.
lot, and it was without a doubt the greatest experience of my life.
Ich bin sehr gewachsen und das war sicherlich die größte Erfahrung meines Lebens.
José and Rosa set out to explore their temporary new home in Dresden. They're very interested in the Church of Our Lady. After more than 10 years of reconstruction, it was reopened in 2005. And one of Rosa's great aunts worked in a kindergarten in the city during the Second World War.
Sie war genau da, als die Stadt zerstört wurde.
She was right here when Dresden was destroyed on the 13th of February 1945.
Und sie hat uns schon
And she told
erzählt,
us all
wie
about
das-
it. How the
wie das
city
hier ein
smelled,
Drama war.
how everything was in
Und wie
flames.
die Stadt gerochen hat.
And now
und
we're here in
wie viel
Dresden
Feuer hier
ourselves,
war.
which is very special for us.
Und jetzt sind wir hier in Dresden. Das ist schon speziell für uns.
They consider the city on the Elbe their second home. They feel comfortable here. Everything is so easy. It helps a lot that they speak the language, but they're also fascinated by the city.
Ja, es gab eine Magie hier in Dresden.
Yes, there's a certain magic here
Und die
in
Schlösser, die
Dresden.
Umgebung,
And the
die
castles,
sächsische
the surroundings, the whole culture that exists in this city.
die in dieser
We'll
Stadt
certainly
gibt,
miss all that.
werden wir auch sicherlich vermissen.
We also really enjoyed going to the Semper Opera.
In die Semperoper gegangen.
Before returning to Brazil, José is looking for a few souvenirs at the flea market, especially second-hand books. He wants to continue working on his German at home. Erich Kästner is his favorite German author. His writings remind him of Pomerode, he says. And then it's time for a final farewell photo. Back in Brazil, José and Rosa have no problem readjusting. As soon as they arrive, they start preparing for the Oktoberfest in the neighboring city of Blumenau. It's the largest festival in Brazil after the Carnival in Rio de Janeiro and the biggest Oktoberfest after Munich.
If you wear this traditional sort of dress in Pomerode, then you say you're dressed up like Fritz and Frieda. So, shall we go, my Frieda?
Oktoberfest in Blumenau. Over 600,000 visitors and nearly 20 days of folk dancing, music and costumes. In fact, in the 1990s it got too big. The number of visitors hit the million mark and had to be cut back. It was too much for a city of 300,000 inhabitants. Even so, the Blumenau Oktoberfest still gives the Bavarian original a run for its money.
We've already overtaken the Munich Oktoberfest as far as spirit is concerned. There's a lot more going on here. We really let off some steam and things get rather lively, that's for sure.
Bands in 3 halls and a beer garden get the crowds going. Over 40 bands and dance orchestras play at the fair. They even travel from Germany, especially for the Blumenau Oktoberfest. After the blowout in Blumenau, José and his wife relax at the Tortenparadies Café. The German tradition of coffee and cakes help keep their memories of Germany alive. The mathematics student is worried German customs are slowly dying out in his hometown.
I lived in Germany for a year and 2 months, and now I can tell the young people here, we have to hold on to our customs and traditions. The language, our culture. You don't have to be strict about it. But you shouldn't sweep them aside either.
The mathematics graduate is still working on his doctorate. He's already got a job interview at a Brazilian university. It would be a limited period contract, but near Pomerode. But it would also be a step further away from life in Germany.
I don't know. Teaching at a German university is difficult. There aren't many positions. That's something I realized. It's just not that simple. But we could spend another 2 years in Germany, which I would certainly enjoy.
So for now, a life in Germany is still just a pipe dream. It's a lot easier to find work in Pomerode. German companies such as Bosch, Rexroth and Netsch have branches here. That's an important factor for him.
I think we can live quite well here. There's a lot of industry, a lot of possibilities. There's no unemployment. In fact, there aren't enough people to fill the positions.
And the young couple has a plot of land in Pomerode. They want to start a family and build a house soon. They want their children to grow up with the German language and Christian values. Nevertheless, they still find it hard to explain what Heimat, that German word which is so difficult to translate, means for them.
There's basically no Portuguese word for the idea of Heimat. There's the word lá, which means at home, but real Heimat? Terra natal, perhaps, where you were born, but it's not really Heimat either. That's why it's a bit difficult to explain what Heimat really means for us. But what I can say is that Pomerode is my home.
Maybe Heimat is really a combination of things. a familiar place, the people you love, and good old rock and roll. For José, at least, these are the important things. And with his band, New Rose, he can bring them all together. Pomerode, family, friends, fans, and rock music. José Beling's heart belongs to both Brazil and Germany. Pomerode gives him a great opportunity to live out this mix of emotional ties, just as his father did before him. They're careful to maintain their German culture in Brazil. They love both countries and both cultures, and the way they sing it here, this dual love will never die.